All right, so yesterday we read chapter 2 in Bud Not Buddy. What happened in chapter 2? Who can give me a brief summary? JJ. To the foster care. And what's the foster care again? Yes, but Layla, why would someone go to foster care? I don't think it's because the parents don't want them. I think it's because maybe something's happened to their parents. They've been injured, or they need to do something to better themselves to be able to. They just can't take care of them for whatever reason. Most of the time, it's because they've passed away or something like that, something horrible like that. You say no to that, Jacayla? Are you saying no to that? Oh, okay, Miles.
I wanted to explain foster care, but you've done a pretty good job of that.
Thank you. I'm so proud of myself. All right. So, what else happened? So he went to the Amos's, right? And he, what happened there, Macy? What was the boy's name? Todd. Todd was his name. What was the mom's point of view about Todd? What was her point of view, Todd? What was her point of view, Miles, about Todd?
She was set to believe that anything he said was right, and she didn't think he would lie because he was her son.
Right. Do you think anybody could change her point of view?
No.
No. And I think Todd was taking advantage of that, don't you? Yeah. Addie. Okay, listen.
In the second chapter, Bud went to the house, and then he slept there for a day, and then the next day he got in trouble because Bud stuck the pencil up his nose.
Todd stuck the pencil up his nose. Did he sleep there even one night?
Yeah. No.
He slept there for the one time.
I saw it in the book. It said 3 months.
No. It said he said he looks like a bedwetter because Todd said he looked like a bedwetter, and they said they were very specific about bedwetting, and they said maybe after another 3 or 4 months we could let you have cotton sheets.
Exactly. So he didn't stay there. So it started out, chapter 2 started out. There comes a time when you're losing a fight and it just doesn't make sense to keep on fighting. So it happened the very first night. So where did they make Bud sleep? Where did they make him sleep, Aiden?
After Todd got him in trouble.
They threw him into the shed. What do you think Bud's point of view is this whole thing about going into the shed? What's his point of view, Joshua? What does he think about going to the shed?
I think it might be scary because Todd's talked to him about there's stuff in there like spiders, there's a lot of animals that the boys were.
And he talked to him about the blood on the floor and stuff like that. So Todd tried really hard to scare him, right? All right. But Bud was determined not to let it out. He was determined not to let it out. All right. On the way out the door, Bud saw 2 things on the way out the door in the kitchen. One was his prize thing. What possession? What was that? Sadie? Suitcase. What else did he see? Layla. A gun near the icebox. And we already said the icebox is a refrigerator. All right. The only thing I could hear was my own breath. It was so loud that it sounded like there were 6 scared people locked up in the shed. I closed my eyes and thought real hard about making my breathing slow down. Have you ever done that? Like you've been in a situation where you've just been anxious? It could be even like during testing or any time when you just feel yourself get nervous and you just consciously make yourself slow down. I do that all the time. Like, you're okay.
I just look at my hand and it starts
Calm down. People have different techniques of helping themselves calm down. And that's a good one. Okay? When you're nervous or you're not sure about something, if you concentrate on breathing slow, it will definitely help bring your heart rate down and make you feel better. Pretty soon it sounded like the 5 other breathers in the shed had left. I was still scared. But now it was that great, real excited and want to move around kind of scared. It didn't take too long for my eyes to get used to the dark. There was a gray gas can in one corner next to a bunch of gray rakes and a pile of gray rags and a gray tire next to some gray fishing poles. Maybe Mr. Amos had only pretended to lock the door. So at night when you go to sleep, if you have all the lights out, your eyes kind of adjust, don't they? And you start to be able to see. Maybe not as clearly as because the light was on, but you can kind of tell what the figures are. All right. So we can all make a connection to that. That could be a connection that you could be putting on your paper. I reached my hand toward the gray doorknob, and quick as that, I went from kind of calm to being in that staying in one place with spit drooling down the front of your shirt, kind of scared. Halfway up the door were 3 little flat monster heads guarding the doorknob. Each head had 2 little round eyes staring right at me. The eyes were the only thing in the shed that weren't gray. They were a bright yellow with a big black spot right in the middle. I dropped my blanket and pillow and back stepped until my legs hit the wood pile behind me. From all the fast breathing going on, you'd have thought the 5 other scared people had come back and brought a couple of scared friends with them. Each head had a wide open mouth with a sharp set of pointy teeth and lips smiling back, ready to bite. It felt like the shed was getting smaller and smaller, and the little mouths were getting closer and closer. Then I knew what I was looking at. The doorknob guards were 3 dried out fish heads that someone had nailed to the door. I ran over to the pile of rags and poked at one of them and my shoe to make sure there weren't any rats or centipedes hiding under it. Then I picked it up and hung it over the fish head so I couldn't see them and they couldn't see me. I picked up my blanket and pillow and had to decide where the best place to sleep. I knew the floor was no good. I had a bed all sorts of bugs and roaches were crawling around. I remember what happened to my best friend Bugs when a cockroach crawled in his ear one night at the home. 4 grown adults held Bugs down while they tried to pull it out with a pair of tweezers. But the only thing that they did was pull the roach's back legs off. When they were digging around in Bugs' ear with the tweezers, you'd have thought they were pulling his legs off, not some cockroaches. I'd never heard a kid yell so loud. After about 15 minutes of Bugs screaming the joint down, they said they were going to have to take him to the emergency room to get the roach out. It was almost morning when Bugs got back. Everything was asleep except me. I waited until they put him in his bed and turned off the lights. I said, "Did they get it out?" He said, "Oh, hi, Bud." "Yeah, they got him." "Did it hurt a lot?" "Nope." "Were you scared?" Good. "Nope." "Then how come you were screaming so doggone loud?" He said, "I don't know. I was probably couldn't hear me screaming because the roach was so loud. It seems like lots of roaches, but I'd never heard one of them make any sound." I said, "Loud? How?" "Well, Bugs ain't so different from us if you think soon As he saw those tweezers coming at him, he was pretty terrified and commenced to screaming in English too, not some bug language like you'd expect from a roach. Yeah, what did he say? All he kept saying was, "My legs, my legs, my legs! What have they done to my legs?" That's a true story about how bugs started getting called bugs.
Wait, is that how the bug life goes? Yeah.
Sort of. I'd bet good connection between books. I bet $1,000 that there were roaches on the floor of this shed, just waiting to crawl in someone's ears. And I bet those Amoses wouldn't have even tried to pull the roach out. And who knows how long I've had to listen to some terrified roach screaming his head off right up against my eardrum. I spread the blanket on top of the woodpile and climbed up on it. This put me so I was even with the window. I took a piece of bark and brushed all the spider webs from in front of the window. Then I put my hand on the glass to see if the newspaper was pasted on from the inside or the outside. I touched paper. I spread my fingers and my hand looked like a yellow jacket bumblebee, bright yellow with black stripes. This was a great place to have a shadow puppet. So I made my hand be a wolf, a dog, and a duck. You ever done that? Like you had a light and you could make different figures and it would show up on the wall. Okay, there's another connection. After a while, that got to be pretty boring, so I scraped the paper with my fingernails so I could see outside. But I like to keep my nails bit down real low, and the paper didn't budge. I looked at my jackknife and tried scraping the newspaper with it. The paper peeled away in little curly yellow strips, like that stuff rich people throw on New Year's Eve. I finally got a hole big enough to look out and mashed my eye up against the glass. I could see the back of the Amos's house real clear. There was a light on. That had to be Mr. and Mrs. Amos's bedroom. The little bit of light that came through the hole in the paper made me get calm enough that I could lay my head on my pillow and take a nap. When I blinked my eyes open, the first thing I noticed was that light from the Amos's bedroom was out. The next thing I noticed made me wish I'd stayed asleep. Up at the very top of the shed was the biggest vampire bat you'd ever see. He was hanging upside down asleep, but the smell of me rising up to him would probably wake him at any minute. I reached over to the window and tried to slide it open. It buzzed an inch. I rolled off the woodpile and crawled toward the door. With the fish head guards, I reached my hand up and turned the doorknob. Mr. Amos was trying to help me, but after the door opened, a crack and padlock and chain on the outside had it tight. I looked back into the rafters to see if the bat had woke up. He was still sound asleep. Just like there was that time that a smart person knows enough is enough, there's a time when you know you gotta fight. I wasn't about to let this vampire suck my blood dry without a war. He could kiss my wrist if he thought he was going to happen. I got up off my knees and picked up the gray rake. I walked over to the woodpile, cool as a cucumber, but inside every part of my guts was shaking. I stood up on the woodpile and held the rake like it was a Louisville slugger. I eyed where the bat was sleeping and grabbed the rake like I was going to hit a 400-foot home run. Just before I swung, I remembered another one of Bud Caldwell's rules and things for having a funner life and making a better liar out of yourself. Rules and things, number 328. When you make up your mind to do something, you hurry up and do it. If you wait, you might talk yourself out of what you wanted to do in the first place. How many of you have ever done that? You wanted to do something, but you kind of waited, procrastinated, and then when it came time, you didn't do it. I know I have. Shucks, I couldn't remember for sure if he killed a vampire by driving a stake in his heart or by shooting it with a silver bullet. If I was wrong and didn't kill the bat right away, I was going to be trapped in this shed with a vampire who was probably going to be real upset that someone had woke him by whacking him with a rake. I took my jackknife out of my pocket and pulled the blade open. That way, if I didn't kill him with the rake, when it came down to the two of us tussling on the floor, maybe a silver blade in his heart would be just as good as a silver bullet. Unless that was what you had to do with werewolves. I raised the rake over my head again, closed my eyes, and swung it like I was Paul Bunyan chopping down a tree with one blow. I felt the rake jerk a little when it hit the bat, and I opened my eyes just in time to see the vampire get cut right in half. I was kind of surprised it didn't scream or cry or say, "Curses, you got me." Instead, the only sound I heard was a kind of rattling like a couple of pieces of paper rubbing together, or like dry leaves blowing around in the wind. The next sound I heard was even worse than if the vampire had said, "Aha! You doggone kid, that hurt, but now I get my revenge." It sounded like I'd turned on a buzz saw in the shed. All of a sudden, it felt like someone had stuck a red hot nail right into my left cheek. My hand reached up to grab my cheek, and I felt something creepy and prickly there. Brought my hand back down, and I was holding the biggest, maddest hornet I'd ever seen. I squeezed my hand shut to crush it, but it got in another sting on my palm. What I thought was a vampire bat hanging on the ceiling was really a hornet's nest. And now there were about 6,000 hornets flying around in this tiny shed, and each and every one of them was looking for me. Another fire nail went into my knee, and the second one went to my sock. Maybe this was why the other kid that they'd found in here had been as big as a whale. He was swole up from all these hornet stings. I dropped my shoulder down and charged at the door with all my might. The door banged against the lock, but didn't budge an inch. All that happened was the rag it covered the fish heads came off, and I got bounced back and landed square on the floor. I jumped up again. This time I charged at the door. I put my hands out like Paul Robertson running down the football field. This wasn't a real good idea. I forgot about those fish head door guards. My fingers went right into the mouth of the biggest one, and his little needle teeth cut me like a razor. I pulled my hand back and screamed. Another hornet buzzed into my ear, and it felt like someone had poured hot wax right down into my brain. The only thing I could think to do was to jump on the woodpile and bust the glass out the window.
Yes.
I grabbed the handles of the window and gave them one more jerk. I guess being scared gives you a lot of strength because this time the window flew open with a loud bang. 3 hornets found me at the same time, and all 4 of us fell out the window. As soon as we hit the ground, I rolled as far away from the shed as I could go. I smacked and whacked the hornets that had taken a ride on me and just lay there until I could catch my breath. After a while, the stings and the fish guard bite quit hurting so much. I started getting madder and madder. I was mad at the Amoses, but most of all, I was mad at me for believing there really was a vampire in that shed, and for getting trapped like this where there was anybody who cared what happened to me. I simmered down and started thinking about getting even. I wonder how hard I'd have to pull that trigger on that double barrel shotgun for it to go off. I sneaked up that back porch steps to get inside the house. Maybe the vampire bat didn't say it, but the only thought on my mind was, "Aha! You doggone Amoses. That hurt. But now I get my revenge." That is a good part. So let's make some inferencing. What do you think's gonna happen to him?
He's gonna shoot. No, he's gonna leave.
Think he's gonna leave the Amos's house?
I didn't even say that first thing.
Okay.
He's gonna get up and leave.
Or he's gonna either he's gonna leave or he's gonna go do something to Bud. I'm not Bud. Todd.
Might go do something to Todd.
Hit him with a rake.
Do you think what did he have inside that was so special to him?
The suitcase and
The suitcase. Do you think he's gonna leave without the suitcase?
No.
No.
He might go get the suitcase.
But you know what he's got? A rake.
You know what he could do? He could get the shotgun and he could shoot it into the sky and make them go out there, run inside, grab his suitcase, and then run
Lock
away.
them out.
That's how they shotgun in the suitcase. What's the point of taking them off?
You know what he should do? He should get the rake.
You're not gonna.
Is it correct?
It's not
Not everything about the rake.